Hello, my name is Bryan Murdock. I'm Director of Service Learning and Community Engagement for Montclair State University. I sort of manage the day-to-day operations of the Service Learning Program and its various program projects and initiatives. These include the Service Learning Program, AmeriCorps Program, the Bonner Leaders Program, the Financial Education Corps Program, and the Orange University Assistant Community School projects, just to name a few.
Okay. And what was, we pretty much did the MLK Day of Service, and what was the most impactful moment that you remember from that day of service?
That was down at Seabright, and I had not been to the seashore at that point, and everything that I'd known about the damage that the Superstorm Sandy had caused on the seashore was all pretty much from written accounts or through TV and radio news. So I didn't have any firsthand knowledge of the impact, and so that was the first time that I'd actually seen with my own eyes what had happened, and it was pretty amazing to see how much damage was caused by the storm, and especially given that we were there in January, I believe, and that was 3 months after the storm. There's still quite a bit of damage remaining. We worked on a few houses, and the house I worked with was had been completely flooded, and so we were gutting the house to prepare it for reconstruction. But it was quite clear to me that, or at least it seemed to me, that the house was thoroughly damaged, and it wasn't clear why they were, while we were doing what we were doing, it looked like the house had been completely destroyed and beyond repair. So, and this is somebody's private residence, and one could imagine, that all of the trials and tribulations that the people were going through without that house. They had no place to live. So it was quite startling.
Mm-hmm. What do you think would be like the most captivating to get the community to be more involved about Hurricane Sandy, if they had not known about it by hearing other testimonies or via social media?
You mean how to keep awareness of what's going on down there, how to keep it going so that people don't forget about it and think that it's all over?
Yeah, to get more community involvement.
Well, I think that it's a combination of things that have to be done. I think that there's got to be a multi-pronged strategy to communicate what's going on, to keep the media's attention, and so that's pretty difficult because the damage is so widespread, and each town has myriad of stories that they could tell about the issues. So it's important to keep it in the news. I think recently, I read today, for example, that the first grant money was just now being released to New Jersey after 6 months.
Wow.
And so when there is news, which that's news. It's good news, but also surprising news, right? So it's good news that the money is coming, but it's also a reminder that the wheels of government turns very, very slowly, and people, private businesses, private people in their private homes are sort of at the mercy of these bigger forces, and they have very little power to change them. And so I think it's important to take those opportunities when they come up, like today's news. I think it's really important to use that news as a springboard to regain people's attention about the fact that there's still a lot of work to be done down there, and that people are still homeless and living in hotels, and living with family members, and they haven't received any money.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that good news could be used to leverage more attention and awareness.
Okay. And like with all the programs that like you're in charge of and everything, would you say that students have like a passion towards hearing about Hurricane Sandy to get involved with that?
Well, I know the programs that we operate, there's been considerable attention focused on it, multiple kinds of drives that were conducted in the fall after the disaster struck, and a number of our AmeriCorps members participated in and helped with various projects as soon as they were able to do so. I think that after the immediate impact, there were a number of projects here on campus. Certainly the university itself contributed a great deal by providing housing, but I know that various student organizations, departmental units, programs that were not even related to the programs that we do, did food drives and clothing drives and that sort of thing. So I think that it appeared to me that students were fairly well engaged in the effort and remain engaged. I know that the Bonner Leader AmeriCorps Program is planning a service trip, and there were enough spots open that we could open it up to the larger student body, and we've had a fantastic response from non-Bonner students interested in attending that trip. So it appears that it's still capturing the imagination of people, and it has the attention of a lot of students.
And how many members, non-Bonner members, have like we accumulated to that have an interest in how?
I don't know. I think that the person who is coordinating that told me that I think at least 25 or so additional applications have come in. So, and this is a project that's going to happen during the summer after school closes. So, I mean, after the semester ends.
Yeah.
So, students are still very much interested in participating even after the end of the spring semester is over.
Would you say that our Bonner Leader AmeriCorps members have done like what do you think our Bonner leaders, like what's your version of service pretty much? Like what's your like passion for service, would you say?
Why do I like service? And why am I involved in service?
Why are you passionate about service?
Oh, well, I've been involved with public service from the time that I graduated from graduate school. I went to the LBJ school. Do you know what LBJ means?
No, I do not.
Okay, the Lyndon Baines Johnson School of Public Affairs. He was one of our presidents in the
Lyndon B. Johnson. Okay.
Yes, in the mid '60s. He took over after Kennedy was shot.
Oh,
so
okay.
there's a public affairs school at the University of Texas that has his name, and I went there to learn about public policy.
Oh, okay.
And I've been involved in public service ever since. So I worked at the Texas Education Agency for a program that it was a federal program that was designed to serve the educational needs and rights of homeless children. So many homeless children don't have a residence or an address because they're homeless. And so the Stuart B. McKinney Homeless Assistance Act provided specific legislation and support for homeless children to make sure that they were able to continue their education and that they got support during the period of time that they were homeless. So I worked for many, many years doing that. I think that I'm not exactly sure where my commitment to public service comes, but from a very early age, I think it was mostly because I came up during very tumultuous 1960s, and there were a lot. It was during the civil rights movement, and I was very much aware of what was going on and how people were having to fight for basic rights, their civil rights, whether it was the right to vote or whether it was housing discrimination or whether it was, making sure that people had, were provided a basic, basic standard of living, regardless of where they fell socioeconomically. So I've always had a sort of commitment to social justice issues, and have tried to find to develop a career that would take me down a path that would help me to get a job or a career in public service. And so I did work for a little while in for-profit companies and worked for large corporations and found it very unsatisfying. And so it was after I had done some work there that I had realized that I really didn't find a lot of satisfaction, career satisfaction in the for-profit world. So I decided to, as Joseph Campbell said, follow my bliss. And started with public service and have been with it ever since I graduated from the LBJ school, which was in 1989.
Wow. Well, clearly you have definitely left a mark on, I would say, every single Bonner leader, especially myself, since we live in the same area, though not very close, but
Yeah.
but still.
We're 609 area coders, right?
Yep. Yes, we are. Yeah, but also just your example, as well as Crystal and Beth and Linda, like you literally show us what leadership through community service shows us, like what it's about. Would you care to comment on that?
Well, no, I think that I've been involved with national service since 1997, when I started as a project director for an AmeriCorps program at the University of Texas at Austin. And I really enjoyed working with national service because I have a kind of philosophy or belief that that there is not a sort of coming of age ritual for a lot of people these days, and especially for the coming of age for being a citizen. And I think that there are church rituals, and like in the Jewish community they have the bar mitzvah and the bat mitzvah, and in the Catholic tradition there are things like the confirmation. These are religious rituals that have to do with becoming a citizen within a community, whether it's a Catholic community or Jewish community. And like, for example, with the bar mitzvah, and the bat mitzvah, the, the the young people who are turning 13 are required to do a number of things in order to become full citizens within the Jewish community, right? So, for example, they have to learn Hebrew, and they have to, and they have things to do. Like one of the things that many of them have to do, many of the, I don't want to call them children because they're young men and women. They have to do community service as part of their confirmation or part of their bar mitzvah. And I think that those kinds of rituals are very, very important for young people to understand as citizens of the United States, and to understand what the rights and responsibilities of citizenship is. And in this case, it's not become part of a religious community, but to become part of the larger community that is our United States of America, that is our country. And I think that it's very important for people to serve and to understand that service is part of not only it's part of who we are as Americans. Service is and volunteerism is so much a part of our culture that there is a multi-billion-dollar industry known as the nonprofit world, and that nonprofit world wouldn't exist unless there were people who were volunteering every day to address issues of public concern. Nonprofits are nothing more than organizations that are developed by citizens who want to accomplish some common good or some common goal. Oftentimes it's something like defeating cancer, like the National Cancer Society or American Cancer Society, which probably was started by people who had family members who had suffered and died from cancer, and so they organized a nonprofit organization to help develop additional funding to fund research and to help families who were suffering from cancer. And you can multiply that across a full range of nonprofit organizations. People know the YMCA, the YWCA, people know the United Way. There are just hundreds and thousands of nonprofit organizations, and all of them are depend upon people to volunteer to make them successful. And I think that I think that volunteerism and community service is part of who we are as American citizens. There are no requirements for service other than the draft for 18-year-old men. But I think that it's quite clear that by the number of people and the percentage of Americans who have volunteered in their lives one time or another, whether it was part of their church or whether it was part of belonging to the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts, or being a member of some of these nonprofit organizations, that they've all done community service. I think that if you had 100 people in the room and you asked the question, have you ever done community service and volunteerism, and they were young adults and adults, I think that you'd get at least 75% of the people. And the reason why to raise their hands to say, yes, I did that. And the reason why you get that is because it's part of the American experience. I often say in the service learning classes that if we were to ask that question in another country, let's just say, not to pick on anyone, but let's say Albania, that you could put 100 people in the room in another country and ask them, have you ever conducted community service or volunteerism? And there would be a much lower percentage of people who would raise their hands. And I just think it's just about who we are.
Yeah.
But we have to pass that on. There is service is part of the American experience, and it's one of the ways that we give back to our community. And it's one of the ways that we address issues. We don't always just depend on government to solve all of our problems. Citizenship really requires people taking responsibilities to get things done. And AmeriCorps is a good example of that. And I think it's a good training ground for citizenship, for people who who want to spend a year giving a year of their lives to service.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if I'm 100% on board with the idea that all people should do AmeriCorps, but I think that there should be options. I do think that, and I've always thought that service, whether it's a national service like that's done in VISTA or AmeriCorps or NCCC,
Mm-hmm.
or even military service. A lot of countries, like Israel, for example, they require everybody serves in the military.
Mm-hmm.
Used to be in Germany, for example, that everybody had to give a year to military service. I think every male did in any case, and if they didn't want to serve in the military, then they had to do at least a year of national service. If they didn't want to serve in the military, and I think that there's something to be gained. I think there's some maturity that to be gained, but there's also an understanding about practicing. There's something to be gained from practicing citizenship that I think serves our country well. So I think that AmeriCorps is a great place for young Americans to come of age as citizens of the United States of America. And I think that they accomplish great and wonderful things. And not only do they make a difference in the communities that they serve, but they have a great opportunity to develop skills, abilities, and really important skills. Communication, teamwork, interpersonal relations, communications. So I think that there are lots of advantages that not only to the communities but to the members themselves. So I'm a big believer in national service, and think that it's a win-win for everybody.
Well, Bryan, thank you for sharing your testimony with me today.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking me.
You're welcome. Okay.